Let's talk to Stephen Webb, Head of Government Reform and Home Affairs at the Policy Exchange, because in addition to all of the stuff that's going on around the Keir Starmer mind games and around what's going on inside his brain and why is he so obsessed with Nigel Farage, there's a plan to reduce the civil service by 80,000 people, saving £5 billion. Whether or not that's going to happen is sort of up for argument, but the headcount has ballooned since 2016 from 380,000 to 514,000. A lot of people said, we had to hire more people during COVID, but really, they should have let them all go by now, shouldn't they? Stephen, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I was reading this morning that the Woke Whitehall sort of project is costing us something like £27 million a year. I dread to think how much sort of, another sort of 125,000 employees has cost in 2015 or 2016.
Well, that's what the Policy Exchange paper I've authored is looking at. It is, there's only been 1 year, 2006, where the numbers have been as high as it is now. And as you say, over the last couple of years, the expansion has been enormous. The government's obviously desperately short of money. They've been talking about 2 billion of cuts and 10,000 staff. More recently, they're briefing about 50,000 cuts by the end of Parliament. What this paper suggests is that 80,000 cuts in the next year or two is absolutely doable, and would save about, as I say, about £5 billion a year, which the government urgently needs. We're particularly talking about the level of grade inflation that has been in the civil service, which is absolutely astonishing. And the size, over the time that I was in the civil service, the size of the expansion of the senior civil service, the general grade drift has been, really quite remarkable.
Right. And what is that? Is that about people being given sort of promotions and still doing really the same job, but just getting more money for it?
Absolutely. So take an example of a principal private secretary for a minister is the same job now as it was 100 years ago.
Yeah.
They're being done at 2 grades higher than they were when I started the career in the 90s. And this has partly been a result of the government, for austerity, froze pay, but what they didn't realise is that the response to that was that the jobs were being inflated instead, because to get the right people, you had to offer an extra grade. Right. And new layers of management have been brought in, and I say the expansion on the senior civil service, it's been about 70% increase since 2013, which is pretty amazing. But in some areas, like the policy centre, it's basically doubled since Brexit, which is extraordinary.
Right, it is extraordinary. And a lot of the sort of the policies about reducing the numbers of civil servants from the Labour government that we've seen so far seem to be about just kind of either natural wastage or redundancy or convincing people to kind of volunteer to go rather than actually sacking them. Is that what your 80,000 is looking at, or is your number bigger than theirs?
It's definitely going to have to include, I think, all those elements, because particularly if you're looking at a lot of middle and senior management, it's not going to be possible to do that just through natural wastage. And if you look at things like the Senior Salary Review Board, they've actually analysed when people leave the civil service, which are the sort of people leaving, and it's very clear it's the best people. It's the people who get the highest performance marking. So the problem with these voluntary packages is the people who've got the best offer somewhere else are the ones who go, and the ones who don't remain. So, unfortunately, there's going to have to be an element of compulsory in that. And this is a kind of, all businesses go through these boom and bust phases, but the difference with the civil service is in the 30 odd years, there's never really been the bust. All the bloat has never been driven out of the system.
And that's the problem. And what about, I mean, you might not know the answer to this, but I mean, what about the sort of comparisons to the private sector in terms of the working from home side of things? Because you get the sense, certainly when Jacob Rees-Mogg was still in the Conservative government, he used to go down to Whitehall regularly, didn't he, and sort of check it out and see who was in and who was not in. I get the sense that there's an awful lot of public buildings in Whitehall that don't have an awful lot of people in them.
Yeah, and I was working for Jacob Rees-Mogg at the time. Yeah, I think it is true. My sense is I ask a lot of people out in the private sector. I think not that many companies have gone back completely working in the office, but certainly the sense is there are some agencies where you hear extraordinary things, 1 day a week or a couple of days a month in the office, and that has real problems. It has real problems actually training up people, being sure what people are up to. In extreme cases, you've had a few people who are actually working from home in more than one job at the same time. Right. Because it's hard to keep a track on them.
Yeah, it really is.
I think there has been a real problem with public sector productivity since COVID. And feel working from home has got to be part of that.
Yeah, I think so, and that would have to be really sort of something that would be kind of completely upended. Because just even anecdotally, I can tell that London is a lot busier now than it was even a year ago in terms of the numbers of people coming in. They might not be coming in Mondays and they might not be coming in Fridays, but certainly 2 or 3 days of the week, London is almost back to normal.
And I think most central departments are probably doing that. But you hear of some agencies where it's been much harder to get people to come back and where there's issues with the unions and so on. I say the expansion has been everywhere. Labour is talking about hitting the sort of the centre and the back office, which I think is reasonable. But actually, if you look at the grade drift and the grade inflation has been happening absolutely everywhere. So I don't think there's any part of the civil service you should say it's fine as it is, because these numbers are historically very, very high.
Yeah, absolutely right. Good to talk to you. Thanks very much. Stephen Webb, Head of Government Reform and Home Affairs at the Policy Exchange. Their paper saying Whitehall's headcount has ballooned from 380,000 to 514,000, and they need to lose about 80,000